and we can uh, have a look at the purport and translation and discuss some important points from the verse. So it's text 37 and 38. Right. Yadi api etina pashyanti lobhapata chetasa kulakashaya kritam dosham mitradrohe cha patakam katham nagenyam asambhi papad asman nivartitam kulakshaya kritam dosham prapashaya janardana. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O Janardana, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? Purport. A Kshatriya is not supposed to refuse to battle or gamble when he is so invited by some rival party. Under such an obligation, Arjuna could not refuse to fight because he had been challenged by the party of Duryodhana. In this connection, Arjuna considered that the other party might be blind to the effects of such a challenge. Arjuna, however, could see the evil consequences and could not accept the challenge. Obligation is actually binding when the effect is good, but when the effect is otherwise, then no one can be bound. Considering all these pros and cons, Arjuna decided not to fight. Wow, Srila Prabhupada is really giving us the complete thought process which is going on at the moment in Arjuna's mind and of course through his words. So let's read the translation one more time. O Janardana, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyat Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuve Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So it is a series of verses which is being spoken here by Arjuna now trying to explain why he's not willing to fight. And just to give you a bit of a recap, in the previous verse, I'm sure most of you attended the session yesterday, the 6 kind of aggressors were discussed. So who will be able to tell us who are the 6 kind of aggressors? They can just unmute themselves and let us know who are the 6 kind of aggressors referred in the previous verse. It's a good recap for us before I share my slides for today's session.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, please go ahead.
Taking somebody's land.
Very good. Number 1.
Who has set fire to someone.
Okay, usurping somebody's land, setting fire to someone's house, or
and attack with weapon, deadly weapon.
Okay, very good. 3.
Kidnapping someone's wife.
That's right.
Giving poison.
Giving poison, and one more.
Plunders the riches.
Plunders the riches. Yes, very good. Well done. That was a good team effort by everybody. So, are you all able to see my slides?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji, yes.
Okay. So in these verses, starting with 36 all the way to 38 or even 39, the theme here is that Arjuna is arguing that fighting will incur sinful reactions. As Balram very nicely explained to us, that he's not willing to fight. And the reason he's not willing to fight, he's giving some justification, not just Krishna, I had enough and I'm going to walk out of the battle. No, Arjuna is actually giving some so-called philosophical answers or justification of why he doesn't want to fight. And that's why he's saying that I do not want to fight because I'll incur sinful reactions because of the unique positions of the aggressors as seniors and relatives. Combining the verses together, so these are the six different kinds of aggressors which were discussed yesterday in the session. That how there is a poison giver, one who sets the fire to another house, one who attacks with deadly weapons, one who plunders riches, one who occupies another's land, and one who kidnaps a wife. So these are the six different kind of aggressors. So these are the people who are what you would call them the worst kind of the people, and they are basically the kind of people, aggressors who can be killed based on the ground of political and sociology, arthashastra. And if you kill such people, you will not incur sin. But obviously, in the world where we live in, we can't take this for as it is, because we are governed by the laws. We may find an aggressor who's done it, but we can't take the weapon in our hand and go and kill them. Because one, we do not have authority of Krishna. Krishna hasn't told us, like how he told Arjuna. And second, we are abided by the law of the country where we live in. Now, leading into the next verse, why Arjuna favors forgiveness based on the grounds of religion and saintly behavior, which is also coming from Dharma Shastra, because also Srila Prabhupada in his lecture to these series of verses from text 36 to 38, he mentions a very good point. He says that because Arjuna was naturally a pious person and a devotee of the Lord, it was quite natural for him to think like that, to act like that, because what is a normal tendency in this world is to we become happy by when somebody else is not happy. We become very sad when somebody else is happy. Whereas a devotee symptom is he's sad when somebody is sad, and he's happy when somebody is happy. So naturally, Arjuna had these qualities in him, and he was feeling a sense of compassion that what am I going to gain after killing my relatives, my spiritual master and others for that matter, who had taught him all the different vidyas like Dhanur Vidya, like other kinds of Vedic knowledge, which was imparted to Arjuna. So he was definitely reluctant in his own right way based on the Dharma Shastra. But Dharma Shastra is one side, but the pure devotional service is on the other side. And towards the end of the 18th chapter, Krishna tells Arjuna that he's telling, forget about everything. And what is the word he's saying? So who can give me that famous verse? That where Krishna is saying, forget about all the dharmas.
Is it
Sarva dharma parityajya
Dharman pratyajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tamsa papebhyo moksheshyami ma shucha.
That's right. So that is the difference between what Arjuna is thinking now and what Krishna is telling later on. One very empowered disciple of Srila Prabhupada, His Holiness Shri Srimad Gaur Govind Maharaj, he gives a very good example. He says that when you are being asked, if you're in a room and your spiritual master or somebody asks you, okay, go get me a glass of water, right? Let's say now we had Balram and Yamuna with us, and I think they're still with us. So if I requested Balram, can you give me a glass of water, please? So Balram gets up to bring me the glass of water, and I tell Balram, hold on, Balram, actually, you know what, just get me a glass of milk. So what do you think Balram will do now? Or we will ask Balram if he's, yeah, you go ahead, Mataji.
I think he'll get the milk.
Okay, very good. Balram, if you're still listening us, what would you get for me to drink?
I would get milk because you changed your decision.
Okay, very good, very nice. Thank you, Balram. And I like milk, by the way. So what Balram would do, he will get the milk. So the point Maharaj was making is that you tell somebody one thing, but it is the final instruction which matters when the person is about to act that or enact or take that instruction. So similarly, there are many things Arjuna had learned in terms of the Niti Shastra, Dharma Shastra, Dhanur Vidya, all this fighting skills he had learned. And also during the 18 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna told him many different aspects of approaching that absolute truth. We went through that ladder, which we will be going through again in the 4th chapter. Is such an important chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So we'll see all these different rungs of way of progressing, gradual progress. But after teaching all of that, Krishna is telling Arjuna, forget about the water, forget about the milk, just focus on the nectar. And the nectar is sarva dharmam parityaja mam ekam sharanam raja. Forget about everything, just surrender onto me, because by doing that, that will bring the perfection of your life. So an intelligent person will focus on the ultimate instruction or the last instruction which the Lord is given. So Maharaj, Gaur-Govind Maharaj gives this very nice example. So here, because of the unique position of these aggressors as seniors and relatives, he's feeling a sense of compassion. And that's why the spirit of forgiveness is coming in him on the account of being very saintly. Prabhupada calls him, he's being very saintly. And Arjuna considers why to risk life and eternal salvation for temporary pleasures and kingdom. In this lecture, Srila Prabhupada makes a very good point. Right now, Arjuna is thinking, I'm the one who's going to kill him. Or I'm the one who's going to kill all the people, Dronacharya, Bhishma. I have to slay all these people. So this whole idea of me and mine, aham mameti, as Prabhupada calls it, is coming in the mind of Arjuna, that I'm going to be acting, or I'm going to be doing. Actually, there is a difference between acting and doing. However, when Krishna enlightens Arjuna, the difference, what happens is, now Arjuna understands that actually I'm only an instrument. And when Krishna is telling me to fight, he's going to take over all those sins. And there is another point which I'm forgetting in the lecture I heard. So if you don't mind, I'm going to refer to the transcription of Srila Prabhupada and exactly share that point with all of you. Yes. So this is, I'm going to read it as it is, directly from the lotus mouth of Srila Prabhupada, his transcription of this lecture, a couple of paragraphs. Duryodhan's party was not considering whether these were pious or impious activities. Because lobha upahata chetasa, they had lost their sense on account of greediness for acquiring the empire. When one becomes lusty or overpowered by greed, he loses all intelligence. What does he loses?
Intelligence.
Intelligence.
And okay, Balram, but on account of, why does somebody loses an intelligence? What is the reason he loses the intelligence? What is Prabhupada telling us, Balram?
It's because they don't think what they're doing, and they just do stuff for their for temporary enjoyment without
Exactly.
thinking what punishment will happen later on.
Yeah, so Prabhupada is using the word out of greed and lustiness. So the point Prabhupada is making here is the difference between the consciousness of Arjuna and Duryodhan is not thinking like that, but Arjuna is thinking, because Arjuna is at least at the level where he has overcome greediness and lust. You see, these are all very helpful qualities in progressing in Krishna consciousness. And one thing is for sure, that anybody who's following the process of devotional service, all these qualities naturally manifest in that person. But here, sometimes because of the piety background or the piety we have done, we accumulate these qualities as well. And because Arjuna had this quality, he's not being greedy and envious, but whereas Duryodhan mentality is, I can't even give them a land enough to prick a pin in that. That's how much greedy Duryodhan was. That's how much his mind was absorbed thinking that how can I share anything with them. So this is why Arjuna considers why to risk life and eternal salvation for temporary pleasures and kingdom. So now going on to our next slide. Balram, could you read the third reason of Arjuna, how he's feeling here for us from this slide?
Sorry, a third
C.
Okay. Correct understanding about forgiveness, saintliness. Saintliness is not justified for a Kshatriya. Compared to Rama Raja, Lord Ram gave sufficient lessons to Ravana, who was an aggressor because he kidnapped Ram's wife, Sita, Mother
So,
Sita.
so Balram, so just explain us a little bit that how did Ram give the lesson to Ravana? What lessons did he give to Ravana so that we can also learn from those lessons?
I'm not sure, Prabhuji.
In terms of what did he do in terms of teaching him a lesson after we hear or read here that Ravana abducted the wife, right? He became the aggressor. So what did Lord Ram do? Did he spare him or what did he do to Ravan?
I think Lord Ram gave him a chance first before he declared war.
That's right. That's a very nice point. You see, because the Lord is so compassionate, he actually gave him many chances by sending many of his devotees. And then even to the point that before the battle was beginning, Ram said, even now, if you come to my shelter, I will forgive you. But because Ravana was so much driven by his propensity to enjoy another person's property, he became so lusty and greedy that his result was that he was completely vanished along with his kingdom. And this is a very important point for us that sometimes we want to enjoy Lakshmi without Lord Narayan. So you see, Lakshmi cannot stay in one place because she's referred as the word Chanchala. So she cannot be in one place. The only place where she can be where is her Lord Narayan is being worshipped. So if the Lord Narayan is worshipped, then Lakshmi will stay. Now one may ask the question, and Prabhupada answers it in many places, that why is it, in fact in the Srimad Bhagavatam it is explained that why is it we see sometimes the devotees who are worshipping, say for example Lord Shiva, are more rich than the devotees who are worshipping Lord Krishna. So who will be able to give me the answer to that question?
Prabhuji, can I ask?
Please go ahead, Yamuna, by all means.
I think it's because Lord Shiva worships Lord Vishnu and Lakshmi Devi stays in that place because Lord Shiva is a great devotee of the Lord.
Yes, that is a very good understanding. Absolutely. And I think more so from a devotee perspective, that is a very good understanding, Yamuna. However, I would also add that Prabhupada writes this point in the Srimad Bhagavatam that the reason, because Lord Shiva is also referred as the word Ashutosh. So the word Ashutosh means one who's pleased very easily. So Lord Shiva, if somebody worships Lord Shiva alone, he can be very pleased and he can give the benediction. But those benediction which are bestowed by Lord Shiva are temporary. Whereas Lord Krishna will give us what we deserve, not what we desire. You see, because like Prabhupada gives this example, if a son goes to a father and says, I want to smoke, give me a cigarette, most likely the father, and any sensible father, is either going to slap him, or if he's allowed to, depending on the country, or at least tell him off. What are you asking? Have you gone crazy? Why are you asking such bad things? Because a father is wanting to give the best to their child, to their children. So similarly, Arjuna wants to, similarly, Lord Krishna gives what we deserve rather than what we desire. And it is not a fact that, but Prabhupada case in some cases, but in a lot of cases, the devotees are given the Lakshmi, the devotees are given opulence, because one, they know how to engage it in the service of Narayan by serving his pure devotees, by opening their homes for the sake of the devotees and expanding the Sankirtan movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And also that they know how to utilize that Lakshmi nicely, because all their children, all their family members, everything around their home is based on Krishna consciousness. And we have many examples in our community, in the community, worldwide community of ISKCON. So that is a very important principle. If you want to worship, if you want, to keep Lakshmi, then it needs to be kept in accordance with the worship of Lord Narayan. Okay, moving on to the next point. Let's have Yamuna, could you read the second one for us? The Madhava one, D.
Madhava. Arjuna addresses Krishna as Madhava to indicate Krishna is the husband of the goddess of fortune. Krishna should not cause an action with bringing misfortune.
Thank you. So here is a very good example that how Krishna is the husband of goddess of fortune. Krishna should not cause an action which brings misfortune. You see, when you are, the word Madhava is here indicates that the Lord Krishna is one who will bestow all good fortune to everybody. Because if we are looking for the real fortune, that can only be bestowed by the mercy or the devotee of the Lord or directly by the Lord. So that is a very significant word here, that Krishna should not cause an action which brings misfortune. How can Krishna tell Arjuna to fight, and then that was never a cause? What did it bring? How did Sanjay at the end of the, like in the second last verse, he's so excited. Oh my Lord, wherever the Lord is, there will be fortune, there will be victory, there will be opulence. Those were the words of Sanjay, because he's super excited now, because he see that the Lord has, Arjuna has conquered and he's won the battle. But more importantly, he's very happy because the instructions which were given to him by Krishna. Finally, in the last point, let's have somebody else read this. Do we have who would like to read us the E point or the last point from the verse?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Go ahead, Puja Mataji.
Saintliness of Arjuna. Yes. Arjuna's thorough consideration of evil consequences reveals his saintliness. Verse 1.37, 1.38. Obligation to not refuse when challenged to battle or gamble is binding when the effect is good, not otherwise. Therefore, Arjuna considered that he is not obliged to fight.
You see, what a sensible, in one sense, what a sensible argument, Arjuna. He's saying to not, obligation, which is to not refuse when challenged to battle or gamble, is binding when the effect is good. So when you're up for something which is going to bring a desired outcome and create auspiciousness for everybody, absolutely, you must say yes. But when the same thing is going to become a cause of distress for many, you don't say no. But only did Arjuna knew that very soon Krishna will tell him that actually this fight will bring the best cause of action for everybody, not just for Arjuna, but for millions of followers of Arjuna, like all of you who are trying to listen to this instruction of Krishna, that this very conversation will become the cause of the fortune for all of us, you see. So now there are a couple of learnings from this session. This is a quote by James Mattis, who says that you're part of the world's most feared and trusted force. Engage your brain before engaging your weapon. So leading up to the arguments, which is going to come, and we will hear in the subsequent sessions, you see what Arjuna is working, he's working at his level and he's not thinking so much. He's speaking what is coming to his mind, and he's just reeling, whatever is reeling in his mind, he's bringing that out. So the idea is that you're part of the world's most feared and trusted force. Engage your brain before you engage your weapon. I do like this, because before we take out our anger on somebody, before we take out our distress or become aggressive with someone, it's very important we think, we pause. And especially for aspiring devotees like us, we all want to become the devotees of the Lord. It is very important we see the lessons which Arjuna has learned, what Krishna told him, and try to think of what did I hear about the scripture when I'm chanting. What did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told me? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told me, Trinadapi sunichena tarorapi sahi suna amani namanadena kirtanya sadahari. I'm supposed to be humbler than the blade of grass. Am I being really humbler? No, we are all trying to practice that, but at least we can remind ourselves before we become agitated, before we become frustrated, before we become angry. And I'm not an exception either, but at least we have a hope because we are following the process, which is very pure. And because at least that faith is there, that by following this process, one day we will become pure. So the point is, before you react, think before you spend. Like there is a saying, earn before you before you react, think, and before you spend, earn. And before you criticize, wait. And before you quit, try. So the point here is being made here by Ernest here is that you can't really make judgment, or you cannot speculate unless you have spiritual foundation, and that Krishna will make it very clear as we go on into the verses. So I selected this purport from this particular section, which is very relevant to what we are hearing, the dialogue between and what's going on right now in Arjuna's mind. So I'll read this. A pure devotee of the Lord never commits any sinful acts, but because the whole world is full of sinful atmosphere, even a pure devotee may commit a sin unconsciously as a matter of course. One who commits sinful acts consciously cannot be worthy of being a devotee of the Lord. But a pure devotee who unconsciously does something sinful is certainly delivered by the Lord, because a pure devotee remembers the Lord always. So there are 2 points here. One is Arjuna is acting as an instrument because he's the Nitya Parshad of the Lord. He's an eternal devotee of the Lord who's come down to enact this pastime. So although we seemingly think he's going to become sinful by killing them, no, he's a pure devotee. Sin cannot overcome him. Like how sin cannot, I have a couple of hands being raised by Srimati Priya Mataji and few others. So we can come back to your questions. In another 5 minutes, we'll be ready to take any questions, or maybe 2-3 minutes. So the point here is, one point is that Arjuna, being the devotee, he's trying to teach us a lesson, and we have to see it in that light. The second point is that the pure devotee of the Lord never commits any sinful acts, in the sense that it is explained in the verse Apichet so duracharo, that a devotee of the Lord, because of his ability or his determination to be always engaged in devotional service, satatam kirtayanto mams yathanantascha dhritavita. So because the devotee is engaged with full determination in hearing and chanting of the Lord, that even if he has some unconscious or accidental issues or fall down, he's still considered a saintly person, as long as he's not deliberately making or doing activities which are sinful. That's a very important part. And finally, this is how we should operate, and this is the instruction Prabhupada gives us in the second canto, first chapter, 17th verse from the purport, that the mind is not to be killed. Mind or desire cannot be stopped, but to develop a desire to function for spiritual realization, the quality of engagement by the mind has to be changed. And the mind is pivot of the active sense organs, and as such, if the quality of thinking, feeling, and willing is changed, naturally the quality of actions by the instrumental senses will also change. You see what Prabhupada is trying to say? He's saying we have to engage our mind in thinking of Krishna through the spiritual realization that will bring about a quality engagement of the mind. And when the mind is because the mind is the pivot of active senses, through the mind, all the senses, because the mind is higher than the senses. You see, among all the senses, mind is there, but it is right on the top. Above the mind is the intelligence, which then drives the mind. Above the intelligence is the soul. So because the mind is the pivot of the senses, and as such, if the quality of the thinking, willing, and feeling can be changed, then naturally all our actions going to come from a very pure level of the mind. Then we will be able to act properly in this world. And what will be the result? The result will be, although we are imperfect, because we are following the perfect, our proposition is perfect. What I was sharing earlier. One may ask the question, okay, we sometimes we are sharing Krishna consciousness with others, and we may not have reached that platform. But Srila Prabhupada, in many letters to his disciples, like one letter he wrote to Karandhara Prabhu, he mentions answers a similar question, that yes, you may not be fully pure today, but you're trying to follow the supreme pure person, which is Krishna, and all the other spiritual master who are coming in the disciplic succession. And by their mercy, and by following the process properly, and with all honesty and with all determination, there is a good chance that one day we will reach to that perfection. So with that note, we will end our today's session. Once again, my gratitude to Balram and Yamuna for not only just doing the chat, but to sharing, to stay with us all this while, and to all the devotees who have joined in. Let's take any questions or comments anybody has. Yamuna and Balram, your hand is up. You have any reflection or any questions?
I just wanted to ask Prabhuji that there was one quote that said about when we have desires and we change it into like, there was one that,
Which one? Prabhupada's quote?
oh yeah, when you, yeah, not
Yeah.
the-
Not this one? This one?
yeah.
Okay, go ahead. So what was your question, Yamuna?
So it says the mind is not to be killed. Mind or desire cannot be stopped, but to develop a desire to function. Like, I didn't understand the.
That bit?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you take an example, Yamuna, that right now, if our mind is telling us, okay, right at this moment, somehow or other, I want to just get outside my road here on Hillfield Lane, and my mind is telling me that whoever car comes, I'm going to take a tiny stone, I'm going to throw that stone at the car, because I have certain impressions from my past life, and I'm driven in that kind of spirit. I'm thinking how to harm somebody, or have a very passionate mentality, or even ignorance for that point of view. I do not know what is right and what is wrong. So Prabhupada is saying that we cannot sit in one place and not do anything. That's not possible for long, even for like a minute second, because even while we are sitting, it's so difficult to hear the Mahamantra when we are chanting. So Prabhupada is saying that mind or desire cannot be stopped. They will come in our mind. The desires will come. If not a good, a bad, some desire will come. But what Prabhupada is saying, if we can at that time take shelter of Krishna and chant the holy name, at that time, if we can feed prasadam to some devotees, invite the devotees to our house, or at that time, if we can go out and do some service at the temple, or do something or do some kirtan at home, or read Bhagavad Gita, we are trying to change that material desire to spiritual desire. Because the desire cannot be stopped, it has to be just changed from material to spiritual. Does that make sense, Yamuna?
Yeah. And what does it mean? Their mind is pivot of the active sense organ.
Okay, the word pivot means okay, why don't you, Balram, help you on this, because it's always nice. My Guru Maharaj does this. Can somebody Google, or if Balram is available, he can Google the dictionary on Google, what is the definition of pivot? And let's hear directly, rather than me giving the explanation. Pivot means a place which holds everything. But we will hear directly from the Google exact definition given by the word pivot, and where does it comes from. You can Google it and let me know, Yamuna.
It says the central point, pin, or shaft on which a mechanism turns or oscillates.
Yeah, so sorry, repeat that again, Yamuna, for us.
The central point, pin or shaft on which a mechanism turns or oscillates.
Exactly. So it is a central point which is like holding everything onto it, so that everything around it sort of revolves, you see. So similarly, mind is the pivot of those desires which come and go constantly. We are either thinking, willing, or doing something or other is happening with the mind. So that's what pivot means, Yamuna.
So basically the mind is the source of all those desires.
Yes, it is a very source in which all the desires are roaming around, be it material, be it spiritual. So if we can train our mind, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, before I go to sleep, I take the slippers and beat my mind 100 times, and I do the same when I get up in the morning. What that beating means is that stop listening to the material vibration, but get tuned to the spiritual vibration and service to the spiritual master. That's what it means. So you got the meaning of pivot now?
Thank you.
Thank you, Yamuna. Okay, any other comments or reflections from anyone from today's session?
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Puja Mataji.
What Arjun is thinking, that he doesn't want to fight and he's giving various reasons. But that's what anyone else would do. Like we would do the same thing, isn't it? That people like Duryodhana are not thinking, but we are thinking, because it's all going to bring disaster to the other side, and knowing that we should not be fighting. But so I sort of identify with Arjuna in that way without Krishna's advice being around us, that this is what will happen, this is what I want to do, I don't want to fight, which is but natural, isn't it?
Yeah, so absolutely. So Prabhupada is agreeing to that point. He's saying because Arjuna is naturally compassionate, he is thinking like that. However, we learn from Krishna that he's directly telling Arjuna that Arjuna, you're applying your compassion in a wrong place. And Krishna gives this verse to Arjuna that it is like it's trying to save the dress of a drowning man rather than actually saving the men. So the point here is we also may operate like that, but there are two things to it, Puja Mata. Was it Puja Mataji? Yeah.
Yes.
The first point is that one, that the battle of Kurukshetra was personally orchestrated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead to bring about revolution in form of Bhagavad Gita for Arjuna and for all of us actually. And also because it was an exceptional case, because Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata, that after millennium I will appear. And then we also hear that paritranaya sadhunam vinashchaya cha duskritam dharam samsthapana arthaya sambhavani yuge yuge. So he's saying that I will personally appear to re-establish the religion or religion. And later on, we hear in Chaitanya Charitamrita that sometimes the Lord may not come, he may send his devotees. So in this age of Kali Yuga, we may think like that, but we have to surrender to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is the hidden incarnation in this Kali Yuga who has come to give us this Hare Krishna Mahamantra by inaugurating the Sankirtan movement and telling us that take this holy name seriously and distribute it to everybody. And by doing that, you're going to bring the spiritual auspiciousness for yourself and for everybody else in the world. Then there will not be any other, because all those calamities were there, they are there now. But the best reason or the best way to get them over is to accept the same holy name, which is non-different from the instruction which Krishna gave to Arjuna to fight. Even Krishna is telling us through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if you really want to fight, because you see, Mataji, Arjuna was able to see all of this external, but not necessarily he had all these bad qualities in him. But here in the Kali Yuga, all those bad qualities are living in our mind, in our body itself. So first we have to work on those anarthas. And once, while we are working in the process, we can also help others, but we have to keep our focus on, like Prabhupada says, we do have to fly our own plane. So the point is, we have to take instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu pertaining to time, place, and circumstances. We are in Kali Yuga, the situation is very bad. So let's try to dedicate our life and become very serious and go back to spiritual world. That's the idea. Does that help answer your question, Puja Mataji?
Yes, it does help. But as you say, in this Kali Yuga, we don't have, I mean, we have to go by what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's guidelines are there. We don't have Krishna or anything with us. So we may take the same decision like what Arjuna is doing, isn't it? Without those who are not into Krishna consciousness or not religious minded.
So that is happening, Mataji. Why do you think our society today is in the hand of the leaders who are making these decisions all the times? And they are not the best decisions because they are not guided by the scriptures. And hence you see nobody is happy. You know, the public is blaming the leaders are blaming another leaders. There is a fighting among the leaders. You know, somebody is leaving the parliament and going, and then, you know, that person is criticizing another person. And all this is happening. But at the time when Yudhishthira Maharaj, all these things were not happening. Everybody was bringing their riches and giving to Yudhishthira Maharaj for doing the Rajasuya sacrifice. The cows were giving plenty of milk. The land was not barren. It was giving so much of the grains, and so much of vegetation was there. There was no scarcity of anything. But because we are not acting according to the instruction, you see, one thing is Arjuna was very lucky. Krishna personally gave him instruction. But we are super lucky. We may think we are not lucky. Krishna has not come to tell me. Of course, not only Krishna, the most merciful incarnation. You see, the difference between Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is, Krishna is telling Arjuna, Sarva dharmam parityaja mam ekam sharanam raja, that you just take my shelter. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu are saying, forget about dharma, this, that. You just come and chant Hare Krishna, dance in ecstasy, take Krishna Prasadam in your... I mean, where will you find a merciful Lord than Gauranga Mahaprabhu in anywhere in the world? So we are super lucky because only 500 years ago Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. And we are even more lucky that his disciples, all the Goswamis, have given us his books, his instructions. If we can try to follow them, our life will be perfect. And then we are even more lucky that the same disciplic succession is coming. And so many, like Srila Prabhupada, came to West, gave us Krishna consciousness, gave us Bhagavad Gita, and now his disciples are acting on his behalf and also doing such wonderful services. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji. Chetna Mataji, you have your hand up. Sorry for a while. So
Yes, that's okay. I actually have a question, but it relates to the previous class, verse 29. May I ask it anyways?
please go ahead. Yes, I'll do my best to see if I can answer.
All right, okay. So this one is about, sorry, I missed that class, so I sort of caught up later on YouTube the next day.
Sure.
So I think this one was where Arjuna said, my whole body is trembling and all of that, you know, where his hand, his hair was standing on end.
Standing on end. That's right. Yes.
And I think the explanation was that, you know, this, for him, it was occurring under fear, under material conditions.
Right.
And then the explanation further went to say that false compassion due to material fear, namely loss of life, indicates material conception of life.
Right.
And compassion placed in the wrong place. And then there was a point that, you know, sometimes we go and feed the poor, open hospitals, schools. All these are pious activities.
Correct.
Because of that compassion, but Krishna refutes this and says that what is the point of doing all this? Because and then there was another example, if when a man is drowning, there is no point saving the dress, save the man instead.
Correct.
Otherwise, the other pious activities, whatever they are, they will be depleted.
Correct.
So my question is that the world we live in right now, what can we do? Because I mean, it's just like very what I think of is, for example, you see somebody homeless who's not, you know, they haven't eaten for 2 days.
Right.
So, you know, you buy them a sandwich or something. I mean, everybody does, you know, their little bit to make sure that people don't go hungry.
Correct.
And I think, I don't know what the Vedas and the scriptures say, but I think this whole idea of helping or feeding somebody must have come from somewhere.
Okay, great. Very, very nice contemplation and very good question you raised, Mataji. So I'll try my best to give you a brief answer for this, keeping the time in the mind. So what it is, you see, when we are doing these pious activities, they are very good because they are recommended in a scripture called Manu Samhita. So Manu is none other than he's the son who's coming in the disciplic succession, and he's imparting the teachings to mankind. That's why his name is Manu. And Manu comes from word Manavantara. So in each of the Manavantras, there are certain Manus. So from Manu comes all these teachings. And in those teachings, a lot of this Shastra or Niti is explained of how to live a pious life. So there is nothing wrong in doing it. But one thing has to be understood, although these activities are in mode of goodness, even though they are binding. So the example I'll give you, there are two, you talked about hospital and food. So I'll give you both the example. So both can be done by us in two ways. So the example of the hospital is that absolutely we should open the hospital. We have to treat the poorest. People should open, but we should not try to do what then people did. Like right now in pandemic, instead of charging what they would charge 2,000, they made it 8 or 10,000 rupees. For that, all of those decisions which were made by the people, they will have to take the karma and suffer for it, unfortunately. But on the other side, if you have hospital like Bhaktivedanta Hospital in Bombay, where you have the patients who are being treated by the best of the best doctors, but every evening Lord Jagannath cart goes into each of the ward and places, people have darshan, they offer the lamp who's enabled to, or they can take the darshan of the Lord, and everybody is fed prasadam. So that's one example. The other example is sometimes you're out there and you're in a place, you don't have a place to offer, but the beauty of Krishna consciousness is that if possible, you should whatever you're cooking, you offer it to the Lord if you're going to distribute it to somebody, if you have that possibility. But if you don't, let's say you're so new and you've just heard somebody speaking that but even in that case, if you just pray to Krishna and at least make sure that, things you're feeding is sattvic in nature, because in the 15th chapter, Krishna tells what kind of food is best in mode of goodness. So you offer food which is without onion and garlic, you serve that. But if you're not able to, but you can mentally offer, you can pray to the Lord and you can say, you can just pray to the Lord that, my dear Lord, I'm in this place, my family members have organized this, and I'm not able to properly offer you, but I pray that somehow or other, before anybody eats, you please accept this offering and thereby sanctify this offering, so it can then be distributed as your remnants and people may get spiritual purification. So because Lord is bhavagahi janardana, he sees bhavs, he will see, oh, you're wanting a benefit of so many people, let it be. And the Lord will make sure that people will get some purification out of it. So the idea is, everything in our life, we have to make it a yagya, Mataji. Our chanting is also a yagya. So whatever a devotee or an aspiring devotee does in his life is like a yagya. So as much possible, if we can make Krishnaize things, if you're having a party, have a party, but include a kirtan, invite the devotees, have prasadam together, make it Krishna conscious. That's the main idea, Mataji. So I hope that answers your question, Chetna Mataji, to some.
Yes, it does. Thank you for that explanation. Just one last thing. Sorry, I know we're kind of
Sure, go ahead.
overrun already. But so when we're helping somebody who hasn't, like if we see somebody on the streets and, and we help them with a little bit of food, as long as there is no selfish reason attached to it, we're okay to continue doing that. We're not saying, oh, I will feed somebody, but in return, I hope God gives me this or God gives me that, or somebody gives me this.
Yeah, absolutely, Chetna Mataji, and that should be the idea, because you see, even at a level of a human, anybody should do this, because the idea is, by doing this, if we can come to Krishna, then we should take this all these credits which help us to come, because if we have a sinful account, we can't come to Krishna consciousness. Only because all of you have done some piety, we have come to this place where we are trying to get closer to Krishna now. Without the piety, it wasn't possible. So it is the piety which creates that ground. But sometimes it is very important at some stage, some devotee interface, and that piety becomes a spirit, it becomes spiritualized, and we take to Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, if it just at the level of piety, then we will be going up to the heavenly planets and coming back down again, actually. So that's how it should be taken. But if you are out on the road, you see somebody is dying of the hunger, and you're sensible enough to decide what is the best sattvic food or fruits you can buy, and then mentally offer and give it to that person then and there, and that is completely Krishna conscious act, because the Lord will be very pleased. Not only you're giving him food, but you're thinking of the Lord. That Krishna says, patram pushpam phalam toyam. You took a fruit and you thought of the Lord and you have offered it to the person then and there. So we should definitely go for and try to help people in that spirit.
Thank you very much. I think that's wonderful to just bring it to mind, that actually say a little prayer before you offer anything.
Absolutely. As I said, our life should be meant of yagya. That's what it is. So on that note, thank you everybody for your contribution tonight. And just a quick reminder, Jyoti Mataji has been collecting the names for these jukebox, which have Prabhupada all lectures. So if anybody hasn't done it, then please give it to Jyoti Mataji by tomorrow or this weekend, because I have ordered. So I just want to make sure that we are not short. Many people have already confirmed this. It looks like this. It also takes a USB. I've been hearing some audio recordings, but it comes with a card inside with all Prabhupada lectures. And look at the quality. So the quality is also very nice. So please let Jyoti Mataji know. Jyoti Mataji, could you share the message in the chat box once again, your number, in case if anybody wasn't there? Yes. I don't want people. So this has all Prabhupada lectures very chronologically. It comes with a little book like this, which takes you through all lectures. So if you want to go to Bhagavatam, you can just type in a number on the jukebox. It will take you to that lecture. So in 2 weeks, it should be here. I think, as I said, we normally do sell it through our boutique shop at the temple for around 50 pounds, but I like to do this as a service. So I'm arranging this for you, and it should be here in a couple of weeks' time. and I'll be happy to offer it to you. I think it'll be around 32, 33 pounds, as I said. I will know more because I'm also organizing the batteries for you so that it comes completely. It comes with a rechargeable batteries, so you can just charge those batteries with the jukebox. So let Jyoti Mataji know. She's shared her number in the chat button. You can make a note of her number and then let her know how many you want. If you want to gift it, it's a great gift for somebody. But more importantly, best thing to hear Prabhupada every day. No distraction of mobile, etc. all in one place. So thank you everybody this evening, and wish you all a wonderful Krishna conscious evening. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhasya kripa sindhu bevacha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for